Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Caregivers. I'm Caroline, the Executive Director with Solva Senior Living.
Hi, and I'm Rachel, the Program and Partnership Director here at Solva.
Welcome to our podcast series where we sit down with caregivers in the community and discuss their journey, their bumps along the way, lessons learned, and share advice to those who might be going through something similar. Each episode, we invite a local caregiver on to share their experiences and to chat about what they went through.
I have Reema on the line, and thanks for joining us, Reema.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
And so, Reema, I guess I would describe you as that sandwich generation. Now, from what I understand, you're caring for both a child and an aging loved one. Do you want to tell us kind of a bit more about yourself and your experience as a caregiver?
Yeah. So I'm currently a mother of a 3-year-old, also a wife, and I'm a software engineer, so a working professional as well. And around 4 years back, we realized that my mother-in-law needs caregiving, and now our mother-in-law stays with us in our own house, and we are responsible for her as well.
Wonderful. And do you want to maybe give us a bit of insight in that? What transpired to lead your mother-in-law to living with you guys and you guys having to care for her?
Yeah. So it all started off around 4 years back in a very unfortunate turn of events. My father-in-law got diagnosed with lymphoma, and this was very sudden, and we found out that it was last stage, so we couldn't catch it early. And in a month, he just had his one chemo session, and that's it. In a month, we lost him. It was a huge shock for us and for my mother-in-law, because my mother-in-law was very dependent on my father-in-law. I should point out that my father-in-law and mother-in-law had come all the way from India to Canada. So they were, because of this, she was she used to also work. She used to work for a Canadian company here as well. But after this, it was a shock for our entire family. My father-in-law was our support system, and my mother-in-law was also had arthritis, but my father-in-law was always there to take care of her. We thought he's the pillar of the family, right? He was always strong and he was always fit. He was a healthy diet and everything. And then suddenly this happened and we were all left at our wits. So then, and she used to stay in Toronto and we were in Ottawa. So finally, it was not possible for her to stay alone in Toronto in a house, because she wouldn't have been able to stay alone and maintain it. So, we had to sell her house, and it was a huge change for her too, as well as us. But that's how it happened, sudden loss in a family. And that's when we decided that now that she doesn't have anyone, she has a son. He's my husband. He's the oldest, and my husband also has a sister. But my sister-in-law, she lives in USA. So the best option for her was to move into our place.
Okay, so when this all happened, she not only lost her husband, but also had to move cities completely. And is she still in touch with her family friends back in Toronto, or is she more life now in Ottawa?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things when this happened was she had to resign her work as well, and she decided that she doesn't want to work anymore. She was she was shocked with the loss, and she decided to take an early retirement. And then when she moved cities, she tried to be in touch, but As you can understand, you can't always, it gets difficult. You can't meet your friends. And it's not possible for us to always take her to Toronto to meet her friends. So eventually, even though she's in touch with them through phone calls and emails and text messages, she doesn't meet many people, that many people in Ottawa. So her social life did get affected once she moved to Ottawa, definitely.
Yeah. And so, with the last year, COVID-19, everything that's happened, what's her situation right now?
Yeah. So let me just give you a little bit background, right? When my mother-in-law first lost my father-in-law, it was a very unique situation. It was a big change for us and for her, and I would say more for her because think about it. She had this whole life set up in Toronto, and it was almost like she got uprooted from that life, and she had to now move um, uh, to Ottawa, and losing a life partner and now being it's a huge thing. So what happened is that the first year was a big change for us and for her. It was difficult for her to come into acceptance that this is going to be her new life, and she was always in that not so very happy, or maybe I would also say, I wouldn't say depression, but it was difficult for her to cope through. But
Mm-hmm.
what lifted her spirits was um, just after 3 months after my father-in-law passed away, she heard the news that I'm pregnant. So that kind of, made her look forward to something in
Mm-hmm.
life. Like, oh, she's going to get a grandchild to play with, right? To nurture, to care for. So she started looking into that, and also we suggested her, that if she wants to go back home, because back home she has a lot of support system, she has lots of friends, she has her aunts and uncles and her brothers and sisters. Back home is India for her. So she really loves to go back home in India, especially during winter, because for as an arthritis, winter can still be really harsh for her. So right now, and what happened is, so what she does is normally during winter she goes to India, and then during summers, probably once the spring starts, she comes back to Ottawa. So that's how it's been going. With COVID situation right now, she's currently still in India because, it's lockdown and a quarantine, and Canada has very strict lockdowns and quarantines, and she feels that, at least in India, she'll be happier with her loved ones. She stays with her brother there, and her brother has a family. So, it's not just us, but it's our entire family into caregiving, right? So it's me, my husband, and sometimes we also send my mother-in-law sometimes also used to travel to US pre-COVID so that she could spend her time with her daughter as well. So that's how we are managing, but she knows that she's trying to delay coming back to Canada, because she knows that once she comes back, then again it's going to be difficult, with all the travel restrictions going on. It's going to be
Yeah.
difficult to go back home. So it's a situation that has changed everyone's life right now. So
Yeah. And so over the last year, I guess then some of the caregiving responsibilities of your mother-in-law have been taken off of you.
yeah.
Still just now you only have to be a caregiver for your child. How has that kind of affected your life?
So it's a very tricky situation. So pre-COVID, when we were into this caregiving, it was very difficult in a way that we had a newborn, and my mother-in-law used to help us around as well. She loves cooking. That's her hobby. So she used to love to cook everything. But there were times when there were um, where we used to not see eye to eye on a particular issue. She used to have her opinions on how I should be, what I should be doing for the baby, for example. I used to have my own opinions, so that generation gap itself. And my husband always used to be caught in this fire where he used to be like, who should I be supporting, my mother or my wife?
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for him because he doesn't know what to do, because he loves both of them. And I love my mother-in-law too, but it's just that, when I have been brought up in a completely different environment, and my husband and my mother-in-law are in a different environment. Obviously, we're going to have difference of opinion, right? With my husband, I can be frank to him and I can tell him, look, I don't like this. With my mother-in-law, there's an element of respect that comes. And in our culture and community, we can't just be straightforward. I can't just tell her, hey, these are the boundary rules, you have to follow them. I can't do that. It's not something that is expected from us. It's not something that we should be telling our elders. That's how we have been raised. So if she tells me something, I used to just keep it within me, and I used to try not answering back to her, or try not imposing my opinion to her. And instead I used to go to Uncle and my husband and tell him that your mom told me this, but I don't agree with this. Can you go and negotiate with her? So it was difficult, with this caregiving. She also in between had a surgery for a knee surgery, and there was a whole part of a recovery system. And unfortunately, my husband travels a lot, so during that time, I found it was very difficult because I had a 1-year-old and my mother-in-law who was resting on the bed, right, because of a knee surgery to take care of. We did hire some part-time help, but that was not enough. I was still responsible for cooking for my mother-in-law, cooking for my child separately, and still working as well. So that was a stressful time during that time. And I had to make sure that, I don't say anything or do anything that might affect her even mentally, right? Because at that stage she's not mentally strong enough to handle her. It's just been around a few years, like 2 or 3 years. She has lost her husband. She's now through surgery, and sometimes I feel somewhere she also feels that she's dependent on us. But she tries to be independent, but there's only so much that she can do. For example, she doesn't have a driver's license, right? So we are responsible for taking her to all her appointments and doctor's visits and dentist visits, shopping for her. Also, when she moved here, she was very attached to some of her things from Toronto, like her some of her furniture also. So all that is in basement, and we couldn't tell her that just give it away. She has that emotional attachment to her, and we want to respect that. And so caregiving is tricky. You have to try to understand that we cannot change them, because they have been like this their whole life, and it's a huge change for them. What we could do is maybe change our situation and circumstances and try to come up with some sort of solution ourselves. We can't ask them to, change in one night or something. And there's obviously a generation gap and difference of opinion, difference of culture. So it's something that you deal with, and it is circumstantial, right? There's no right or wrong solution to this situation.
And then going back to that period in which she had this surgery and became even more dependent on you guys, and you mentioned that you brought in some care. Now, what was that like, bringing in some extra support?
Yeah, so we had to bring in some extra support. That's because during daytime, me and my husband, we were out of home. So if anything happens, how are we supposed to know? So it was only during daytime when we had that extra support. It was good for her also, and they used to help her, take a shower, help her, eat and stuff, I used to prepare the meals in the morning, get up early, prepare her meals before, so that once the part-time caregiver comes, they know exactly what to give her. And even her food was different, right? Because she's recovering, we had to make sure that we give her food that we are not eating on a daily basis. We had to make her much more healthier stuff, easy to digest, so that it's easy on our digestion and everything. So it was different with I think only in the mornings I had that peace of mind that there's someone looking after her. But then once we come back from office, then it was again me and my husband, looking after her. And then there's this thing of this comfort level. For example,
Yep.
if she wanted to go to the washroom, I used to help her go to the washroom rather than my husband. She was more comfortable with a female accompanying her rather than my husband, right? So in that way, then I had to help her more. My husband then used to take care of my little one, and that's how we try to balance things out. The challenge was when I was all alone. That was a big challenge. Who should I look for? Should I look at my little one, or should I look at my mother-in-law? And then we had to also make sure that he doesn't go and do something to her, because he didn't know, right? He was just jumping all around. So that was a difficult, challenging time when he was away for a week, and I had to go through it. But when you're put into situations, you try to find a way. So I used to try to wake up early, keep everything ready for the nighttime itself, so that I know that once I get up early, I have everything ready to go, so that I can cook meals quickly, keep all her meals ready, so that if the part-time caregiver comes, they can give her stuff. I made sure that my kid has a particular time, so it was all based on times, and we managed it in that way. Yeah.
So you would say time management was your
Key.
biggest asset?
Yes, definitely. I have also done, so I didn't have time for groceries, so then I used to just do that pickup. The Loblaws has these shop it online and pick up your groceries. So I used to order stuff at work before leaving at lunchtime, order stuff, and then just go and pick up my groceries, because I didn't have that much time to go and physically shop around for groceries. So I had to take up these things. They also burn your wallet, but you have to figure it out somehow. How much can you outsource, how much can you do yourselves? You have to make sure that during that time you are also taking care of yourself mentally, right? Or otherwise you'll burn out.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to kind of ask you a question. If that situation happened again, would you change anything about how you guys handled the situation? Like, do you have any kind of advice for anyone who's kind of going through that similar kind of thing?
Yeah, so I know that situation might happen again, because she still has to go with another knee surgery in the near future. And she has a daughter, and I might ask her daughter. Her daughter did come for a few days, but it was just for a few days, and she had to leave because her daughter is a doctor in US. So you know how doctors are; they can't take a long break or vacation. They are also running around. So, but I feel that next time I'm going to ask my husband and my sister that, hey, I understand she's my mother-in-law, but you are her kids, right? You guys are more responsible for her. And I might come across as a bad person here, but I also have another kid here to take care of. So I might, make sure that, my sister-in-law and my husband both are there at home. So I don't mind if my sister-in-law comes and stays with us while that situation happens for a short period of time, right? And my sister-in-law is an amazing person. She's almost like a friend and a support system to me. And she knows how mom more than I do. So
Yeah.
she's better at dealing with her mother than me, right? And
Mhm.
there's always this daughter-mother bond that a daughter-in-law cannot replace that daughter-mother bond, right? And it's
Yeah.
something special about mothers and daughters. And there is a different bond between mothers and sons too. I'm not saying that. I have a son, right? But when it comes to caregiving and mental health, I think daughters are more I would say emotionally intelligent in dealing with something like this. So I would try to see if I can get more support from them,
Yeah.
you know. And that's what I would recommend, that if you do have, I would say don't be shy to ask help. If you are a caregiver, don't think that this is all on you only and you're the only person who can do it. There might be people who are willing to do it, and don't be ashamed or shy to ask help from them. Um, Unless you ask, you're not going to get it. So I would say look for it. If you can do it financially, if you can support it financially through caregiving services, go for it. But I know caregiving service is expensive. That's why we also just did it for the morning. That's how much her insurance covered, and that's about it. But if you have family or support system, then I would say make use of it. Um,
Absolutely. And so you were mentioning also, uh, you said your mother-in-law, so she's in India, and you're from India yourself as well,
yes.
correct? And so, based on kind of your experience and my experiences are quite a bit different. Um, is there kind of expectations placed on you from your community for caregiving for your mother-in-law?
Yeah. So, um, one of the biggest things in our community is that, the son is responsible for taking care of their parents once their parents grow older. It's just an
Okay.
implicit thing, and it's the oldest son mostly, mainly. Uh, I do not know from where it comes, but that's how it's been since generations and generations. So the older son is responsible. Nowadays, it's not. Nowadays, everyone understands that the burden shouldn't just come on the older son. So if you have multiple sons, everyone splits their tasks. But if you have a son and a daughter, then the responsibility comes more on the son than the daughter. Because think about it, uh, the society is arranged in such a way that the son will take care of the parents. So if you have a daughter who has a husband, her husband is responsible to take care of his parents. So obviously the
Okay.
mom now cannot go to her daughter's place because um, her daughter's husband already has his parents living with him. So the responsibility now cannot be divided, and the responsibility comes on the son. Now, one interesting thing to note is we don't have the option of retirement homes, long-term cares in our community. For some reason, um, you know, um, they're not they're not open. The um, our parents' generation is not open into uh, that side of retirement homes or long-term care, and that is just because probably India doesn't have um, 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 the level of service that is offered here in Canada. But
Okay.
it's something that is frowned upon. It is that it's that's how our culture is. The culture is the expectation is your parents took care of you when you were growing up. Now it is time to give back. You take care of your parents. That's how it is.
Okay.
That's the expectation. Um, I do not expect that from my son, but you never know, right? Uh, in the situation, and this is because, Rachel, you need to understand that in India, parents sacrifice a lot for their kids. So, for example, some parents don't even save for their retirement. They send their kids to from India. They send their kids to education to USA and Canada. They spend their savings on their education. Even weddings, sometimes mostly, I would say mostly, for most of the time, parents sponsor their kids' wedding as well. So it's not the kids who pay for their own wedding. So if they're paying for their education, they're spending money for their weddings too. They're not saving much for their retirement. And that is why there's no option of this retirement homes. That is one thing. And the second is even if the kids are ready to sponsor for their retirement homes, it's just a thing, it's just frowned upon. All the relatives will be like, oh, the kid abandoned his mom and dad, you know. So it's a culture that we have grown up with, that we don't leave our we don't abandon our young older parents who have taken care of us for a long time. And I'm not saying it's a wrong culture or a right culture. That's how it is. It's a culture. It comes all out of respect and love for our parents, of course. But yeah, so but when we stay in Canada, one of the things is in Canada you don't get a lot of help, and help is expensive compared to when you were in India. In India, the minimum wage is very low. So even if you have a loved one that you're caring for, you can still hire someone full-time to help them with everything, to help them with their food, to clean their room, for everything. It's very cheap. Here it's not the case. So you are responsible for maintaining their bedroom, for changing their sheets, for cooking for them and everything. So it's a different lifestyle in here compared to India, but that mentality doesn't change, right? That mindset doesn't change when you migrate from India to Canada. So, and that's where generations like me and my husband, we are struggling to find a balance between the Indian mindset and the Canadian mindset. And we have to come into find a balance between those two mindsets and flow along with it.
Yeah, and then so if you guys know that your mother-in-law will need more support in the future, and looking forward to that future, is there anything that you guys want to do, or is there anything you're thinking ahead to so that you can set yourself up to do that balance of work, child, and your mother-in-law?
Rachel, honestly speaking, we are not sure yet. We are going to see how things progress. My husband has sometimes debated that maybe he can still split the responsibility with his sister, but he's not sure how much of it he can do. So, right now she at least can travel to India, and she loves traveling to India because she gets to meet her friends there. So it's okay. But we know that as she ages, her traveling is going to get difficult. And, it's with caregiving for an older person, it doesn't get easier. I would say it would get more difficult with time, because because as they're aging, it's going to get more difficult for them, and that's why it's going to get more difficult for us as well. However, I'm hoping that my son also is here, and he's going to grow, right? So he will learn this. He will learn it at a very younger age, how to be sensitive and emotional and caring towards your grandmother. I'm hoping that he will also be able to help us. And he will also soon take up that caregiving responsibility towards his grandmother. And I'm sure he loves his grandmother a lot, right? So I'm sure he will also be included in this. And that's what is going to happen, right? Once he hits his teenager, once he starts going to high school, I'm sure he's also going to be a part of it.
Yeah, that sounds like a very special bond that the two of them share. And it's interesting that you mentioned that he knows to take on that role of a caregiver and to help out. Where I know within my family, it's never been that kind of case as a grandchild, I was expected to be spoiled and go and visit my grandparents, but never expected or even thought about providing that support. But the way you talk about it, it sounds like it's very much part of your culture that you teach children to respect their elders, and that they have that responsibility to take care of them as well.
Yes. But we are hoping, that that we are able to give our child as much freedom as possible, and we don't become a burden on him as well, because I know it can be difficult, because we are going through it and we are finding it difficult. You never know what the future holds, but me and my husband are trying to, from this, we are learning ourselves. Let's not be too dependent on each other, for example. Let's try to be independent. And I think in our parents' generation, I wouldn't want to generalize, but especially I think the male counterpart was more independent. They used to go to work, they used to drive, and the female counterpart, even though they worked, I feel for some reason financially they were more dependent on their husbands. They used to not, for example, never care about how many like simple stuff like driving or financial freedom as such. Even though they used to earn, they were not too much into saving for themselves, keeping a safeguard for themselves. And my mom and my mother-in-law, she's completely financially independent, but she doesn't still know how to navigate the banks, for example, right? She has her bank card and everything, but we have to help her through that. What I did is I actually downloaded an app for her on her iPad. So her iPad is the way that she can navigate, but they were technologically left a little behind. For example, my father-in-law knew how to use the computer. He could do all the transactions online, no problem. But that was the thing with my mother-in-law. And that's not only with my mother-in-law, it's also with my mother, right? If I tell her, do you know how to pay a bill online? She doesn't know that, right? They do not know how to take into account these new technologies that is available to us, and we can just sit at home and do it, right? They're used to that old school way of going and paying the bills, for example. So me and my husband, we keep thinking that, we should try to not be so dependent, or try to stay ahead with the future generation. That means my kids' generation. But who knows, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's, you hit the nail on the head. And so, thank you so much for sharing and opening up about your experience as someone living coming from India, living in Canada, but still having the expectations from your community. We really appreciate you opening up and being so honest about everything that's happening. We wish you good luck when your mother-in-law comes back. Do you know when
she'll soon be coming back? She has already received her first dose of vaccination in India. So she's just waiting for her second dose, and then I think it would be safe for her to travel to Canada.
Okay, so she'll be back in your care soon, and you'll get to quarantine for 14 days with her.
Yeah. So that is one of the things, is that right now there's a mandate of quarantining in a hotel, and she has never stayed alone ever. So we're not sure if she can do that, and that is why we are delaying her return until that restriction is lifted. So let's hope. No idea when will that be lifted, but if not, then we'll have to figure out some other way of, one of our relatives, if they are traveling back from India to Canada, maybe, don't know. Let's see. If I'm hoping that Canada lifts its restrictions soon and we all get vaccinated and everything returns back to normal, hopefully.
Yeah, I hear ya.
No problem.
Thanks again.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Conversations with Caregivers. If you want to hear more, check us out online at www.solverseniorliving.ca. And don't forget to subscribe to receive notifications about new episodes. Bye for now.